Resident Evil 3 is more of a remake than a remaster, but that's not a bad thing. The game aims to retell the original story and hits most of the key plot points, but it takes liberties along the way. Things are cut while also added, including areas, enemies, scenes, etc. The game by no means replaces the original, it just accompanies it. The game is set during the fall of Raccoon City. The city is realized beautifully with the RE engine, and it really just looks gorgeous with all of the neon lights and wet concrete. Gunplay feels really good, and I think the game did a great job at ambushing you with zombies quite frequently. There were a lot of times where zombies sneak up on you from behind while you're already being swarmed. It makes for a lot of really intense moments. Many old enemies have also been reworked to be way more scary and interesting. The layout of the world is probably one of the most linear Resident Evil games I've played. You'll only have to backtrack a handful of times, and only if you want to collect everything. There really aren't that many puzzles at all, which did disappoint me. The game was quite short. I beat it in 6 hours, and that's with checking every single nook and cranny. Although it is worth mentioning that the original was also around the same length. I also didn't really find the game scary at all, but I felt the same about the original. The setting just isn't the same as a creepy mansion or police station. Now, this wouldn't be RE3 without Nemesis. Well, he's back, and as spooky as ever. There are things that I liked and didn't like about how he was handled in this remake though. He didn't really feel like a staple like in the original. He wasn't this ever foreboding, scary, and sometimes annoying monster that he used to be. In the original, there were areas where he just pestered you for ages, similarly to Mr. X in the RE2 remake. In RE3 remake, that only ever really happens once, and your future encounters with him are limited to scripted chase scenes. Now, I don't think this was necessarily a bad thing. I think with the overall pacing of the game, having him linger everywhere would have really slowed it down. That's not to say I wouldn't have liked a few more scenes like that though. But this brings me on to my next point. In this remake, he is a lot more relentless. I remember more or less effortlessly gliding by him in the original. In this game, he genuinely is frightening to be chased by. Aside from his scary new look and sounds, he also plays with you more than in the original. Just when you think you've gotten away, he might grab you from off screen with his tentacle and pull you closer, or simply jump right in front of your path. These new moves made him feel a lot more real and threatening, which was super enjoyable and scary. The game brings in some new set pieces and boss fights with him too. I'll refrain from showing or talking about them with you to allow you to discover them. But I think they do a much better job at keeping the player engaged with more interesting fight mechanics than in the original. In the end, I really enjoyed his presence in the game, while I would have liked a little bit more of it overall. It's worth mentioning that the counter mechanic has returned from RE3. You can dodge roll with Jill and block and punch with Carlos. In this remake, you can even get a bit of slow-mo for about 2 seconds to get some easy shots off if you pull it off just right. As for the narrative, the voice acting is great, as well as the facial animation. People are written pretty realistically, and it really brings the whole thing to life. The overall story is more linear now. You can't make any choices in the game, and Jill feels less neutral and more like a developed character. I personally liked it and didn't mind the scrapping of multiple endings and choices, but I thought it was worth mentioning. In the end, although I do wish it was longer and it has some shortcomings like the absence of puzzles, I overall loved playing through this remake because it even brings surprises for players of the original, and seeing the city from this perspective is just so cool. I think even new players will find this equally as engaging and overall have a good time. I think it's a really high quality campaign and I highly recommend it. If you found the review useful, please don't forget to like, subscribe and hit the bell. If you want to pick up the game for yourself, there is a link in the description to do so. My name has been Mr. Wooden Sheep, and thank you for watching.